As parents, we want our kids to be safe and healthy, and that probably includes the talk about staying away from drugs. But as we know, this is a growing epidemic in our country, and that's what we'll be talking about today, ways we can address this issue. Hello, and welcome to Living Well with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life. I'm so happy to welcome Angela Conover, Director of Opioid Prevention for the Partnership for Drug-Free New Jersey. Thank you so much for joining us, Angela. This is such an important topic, and I'm so glad you're with me today.
Thanks, Robin, and thanks for having me. So happy to, be talking about just exactly what you said in your opening. You know what? Empowering parents to have these conversations to help protect and safeguard their families.
Absolutely. And we know we want to talk to our kids about staying away from drugs, but there's so much more to it now with fentanyl and with, prescribed drugs that we always thought were safe in the past and can be if used correctly, but there is a big problem with that. And once kids, maybe take some painkillers for maybe surgery or some sort of problem, they can get addicted quickly. So let's start there. Let's start with, where the problem stems from and how it's changed over the years.
Absolutely. So, we are in an opioid crisis, really an opioid epidemic. Here in New Jersey, we're losing over 3,000 New Jerseyans a year, which is just an unacceptable rate. And you know what? Here in New Jersey, we're holding steady. The rest of the country, our neighboring states and Pennsylvania and New York, they're seeing increases each year. So, you know what? It is a problem that does not discriminate amongst our communities, our counties, our families. No one is immune from this. So everyone needs to be aware. Everyone needs to be aware that they could be touched. And I'm sure in your audience, everyone knows someone who has been somehow impacted by this opioid crisis because just as you said in your opening, you know what? Who hasn't had an injury or has had their child had their wisdom teeth taken out or had surgery and received pain medicine, right? And those pain pills are so addictive. They're so, can lead to addiction, and people don't know that, right? People are giving
Yes.
them to their children,
Yes.
and they aren't aware. And so important, as you said, to empower parents with that information, right? To know to talk to their doctor, to ask for alternatives, to say, hey, you know what? I was watching Robin's podcast, and I heard that prescribed opioids are the same as heroin. They're the same drug. Is there an alternative for my child that I can give them? I don't want to see my child suffer, but you know what? Maybe ice or acetaminophen, ibuprofen can work. Are there other alternatives? Nerve blockers? What can I do? But having those
Sure.
conversations with the doctor would be the number one way that, we can start looking at the way that these medicines are coming into our home, these pills, and the potential they have for dependency and addiction.
Absolutely, and and looking at maybe what's in our medicine cabinet as well, but this started
Absolutely.
really back in the '90s about, I would say, when opioids were prescribed, just no one really realized how addictive they were. People would get 30, 60 at a time, and what would happen was when you couldn't get a renewal of a prescription, people started turning to heroin, and
Okay.
that's where it really got dangerous. But now we even have another problem layered on top of that, and that's fentanyl, and
Yeah,
that can be deadly. I think it's what, like a few grains of what's the amount of a
exactly.
few
Like a
grains
few
of
grains of
sand
salt.
of
Yes,
salt.
exactly.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I mean, talk a little bit about that and what's going on with the fentanyl epidemic.
Absolutely. And fentanyl is a very, very strong opioid that's really being mixed into illicit drugs that are found on the street. So similar to the way that you described, look, someone gets dependent and addicted on something perhaps that, they were prescribed, whether they had a broken arm or your child had a wisdom teeth extraction or, some surgery. And they become dependent, they become addicted, and now they're buying drugs on the street because they, aren't getting them any longer. There's no more need for them with their doctor. And maybe they don't even realize that they're dependent and addicted, but they know that, as they can't kind of come off these drugs. So when they're buying them on the street, we know that the street drugs are being cut with fentanyl, and they don't know, right? You may be getting a fentanyl pill that is 100% fentanyl, and that is so deadly and so lethal. And that's why we're seeing the death skyrocket right now, because fentanyl
Oh,
is everywhere, and it is
it's just
so,
tragic. I mean, you
so
see
deadly.
parents on television, or I've even known some people, some friends of mine who have lost children, and it is
Yeah.
just the most tragic and preventable death. It just breaks your heart to see it. And that's why I wanted to do this, because I think we need to educate ourselves. We need to be smart
Absolutely.
about it. Just taking that step, and if our child gets prescribed painkillers, what are some alternatives? Does it have
Yeah.
to be that way? I mean, we want to trust our medical community, of course, but we should question everything. These are our
Yes.
children, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of them. And I have to say, in defense of the medical community, many doctors that I've spoken with are not prescribing opioids unless absolutely
No,
necessary.
absolutely.
They are
There has been a
changing what they're doing.
significant change. I mean, you mentioned the 90s, and absolutely. I mean, that's why we are seeing the settlement funds coming into our state and across the country from the pharmaceutical industry, because they did keep that knowledge away from us, and they did train our generations of medical professionals to say, hey, you know what? Opioids are safe. Opioids aren't, you can't become addicted to an opioid if you actually have pain. These are not true statements. And I can't tell you how many parents I work with. You mentioned parents, how many parents I talk to who say, I had no idea that the medicine that I filled for my child, that I filled for them for their injury and said, take this, the doctor said to take this, ultimately led to their addiction and their death. And so to just save one parent, one family, save one child, that is the goal of just having these conversations, having the conversations, like you said, with your doctors. Look, if you have that conversation with your doctor and they say, hey, you know what, we're going to prescribe your child these opioids for their pain, you have the decision. Do I want to give my child ice and perhaps ibuprofen and acetaminophen, and they're a little bit uncomfortable for a few days? Or do you want to consider having this potentially addictive, dangerous drug come into your child's body, come into your home? Then once you have it in your home,
Absolutely.
it can be diverted by anyone. I mean, that is where we need to be having these
That's the
decisions. And
choice.
it's a choice. And we're lucky here in New Jersey that back in 2017, our legislature passed a law that requires that at the time an opioid is prescribed, that the doctor or dentist inform the patient or the parent of the patient about the potential for dependency and addiction. So we are lucky, but we need to continue to have these conversations. We need to ask additional questions, right? And then if we decide to take that opioid and take it into our home, right, we need to secure it. We need to make sure it's out of reach. It's locked away in a cabinet. We need to know, if we're giving that to our child, to look for the signs and symptoms of dependency and addiction. So right away, you can get help for, your child, and get them off that, to call the doctor, say, look, it looks like, we're stopping this, and we're having some issues. Looks like my child may be dependent because I'm noticing that they're itching, or they're nodding off, or, their eyes look
Mood
look different.
changes. Yes.
Exactly.
We
Mood
know.
changes. They
Yes.
have new friends. Have those conversations, know about the signs and symptoms. And then, you talked earlier about securing the medicine and making sure, if you have it right in your home,
Uh-huh.
you know what? Everyone needs to be going through their medicine cabinet, right?
Mhm.
Taking inventory of what you have. How many do you have? You know what? Your neighbors, your kids, the neighbors, your own children
They
can be
go into your
active.
bathroom, they use the bathroom, the
That's
door
right.
shut. You don't know what's
You
going on
don't
in
have
there.
any idea.
Yes.
So secure those, take inventory of what you have in your home,
Mhm.
secure those medicines, safely dispose of anything unused,
Mhm.
unwanted, expired, safely dispose. There are disposal locations
Yes.
across our state, most in New Jersey, in most communities, and through Project Medicine Drop, in through the Attorney General's office, in each police department. And you know what? Across the country as well. There
Yes.
are drug take back days by the DEA. The DEA holds them twice a year. So there are plenty of opportunities to safely dispose of those medicines in your home. And you know what? Have those conversations with your children, right? About only taking medicine that is prescribed to them, about the risks of opioids. They need to know about medicine safety. And you know what? You can start that conversation, when they're 5, 6 years old, right? When you're giving a vitamin to your child, they may love how it tastes, or it might be in a character form or something. And you know what? They may say, "Can I have another one?" And that's a good time to have that conversation, right? No, we need to only take what is for us, what is prescribed for us, what is appropriate for us, what the directions say, right? And continue to have those conversations, really starting at a young age about healthy decisions,
I
healthy
love that. I
things.
love that piece of advice because you can really, uh, set the tone. Basically, you don't have to
Yes,
wait till they're older to go through all the
absolutely.
horrors of drug use. You can just talk about, what's appropriate and what's right for their age. And I do want to mention, opioids in themselves, heroin in and of themselves are terrible, but with the fentanyl now, you had said something to me a while ago, and I want to circle back to that because it's like when you bake chocolate chip cookies. Can you explain that
Yes,
analogy and how
sure.
deadly this can be?
Absolutely. So stealing this from a law enforcement partner who explained it to me like this. So you make chocolate chip cookies, and when you're home making them, one cookie may have 25 chocolate chips in it, and the other cookie only has three. And you're like, you mixed everything together, but you made those cookies, and they're very separate amount of chocolate chips rather. It's the same thing for the people who are making the pills on the street, right? They're making these pills, they're mixing everything together, including the fentanyl. And the one pill may have 99% fentanyl and the other has 2% fentanyl. And you don't know what you're going to get. And you don't know how lethal that pill is. So, when
What is the
you're buying
reason?
pills
Is
up the street,
fetanyl more addictive? Is it cheaper? Or they're cutting it
it's
with this
extremely,
fentanyl? What's the reason?
it's much stronger. It's the strongest form of, and one of the strongest forms of an opioid that you're going to be able, you'll get. And it's cheap, right? It's very cheap. So you're getting that kind of same high, that if you're selling, you're getting that same high in those pills, than if it's even cheaper than heroin.
Oh my God.
So
It's just sickening. So let me just ask you
yeah,
this question too. We talk about kids, when they
yeah,
maybe get injured or they get their wisdom teeth, but
sure.
there are also kids that are self-medicating because of
Absolutely.
maybe mental health issues, depression.
Yes.
We've just seen, especially since the pandemic, I think
Yeah,
we've really seen it shined a light on some of the issues that many of these kids are
absolutely.
going through. I don't know, don't want to blame social media, but I know some of it is attached to social media and feeling less than
Sure.
or being bullies. There are a lot of issues with that as well.
Absolutely. The Surgeon General just issued a report on the dangers of screen time and the risks of screen time. And it goes back to exactly what you said about the stress. I mean, really, right now, coming off the pandemic, 100% mental health of kids. Think about all the different ways they've been impacted, whether it be in school or with their friendships, or, all different ways that that's impacted them. But you know what? Kids need to know that they can come to their families. And we talked about conversations before, right? We talked about conversations about healthy decisions. Any conversation, your child needs to know that they can come to you for any stress that they're feeling, that they're coming to a no judgment zone, right? That you're unconditionally going to love them, and that they should come to you to help with their stress and how to deal with healthy solutions to that. And parents also need to tell their kids, you know what, this is what's acceptable in our family, and this is what's not acceptable in our family, so that the kids, have those understandings and those boundaries, but that they can come to you and find those healthy ways of dealing with their stress. It's so, so important that parents and children communicate together. And we know that children who have dinners together, for example, with their families, 5 times a week are, significantly less likely to try drugs and alcohol. So, we know that from research. So
I know
having,
they get better grades.
yes,
They just do better
just
because
having
there's
that,
family connection, and we've lost that really over the years. I
yeah,
mean, we're so busy running work, and then taking the kids to practice or whatever it is, dance class, and sadly, we've kind of lost that. We all have. I'm
absolutely.
not saying I'm so any
No,
better than
but you
anyone
know
else,
what?
but it's
Just what you
sad,
said, find those times to communicate, right?
right?
On the way
Even
to
if it's not
practice.
5 days a week, right?
Exactly. On the way to
Yeah,
practice. Hey,
yeah.
how is it going? How are you doing? Or just talking about anything, just so you have that open communication that your children will, come to talk to you. But yes, we know through research that children say the number one reason that they experiment with drugs and alcohol is to deal with the stress in their lives. So I implore all parents to really have conversations with your children so they know if they're having any issue, if they're worried about anything, if they have any stress, they're dealing with any crisis as we come out of this pandemic, that they should come
Absolutely. It's still
to you for
affecting us.
help.
I mean, it may be a little bit
100%.
more in the rear view now, but it's still affecting us. And I think it
Oh,
affected the
100%.
way everyone communicates, all of us, even adults. Everything,
Yes,
look, we're on we're on a Zoom right now, or just,
exactly.
just text messaging and not real one-to-one in-person communications. I mean, you see
Sure.
that with, I see my kids 22 and 19 that always have their phones. I only see
Yeah.
the top of their heads. And
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing, but they're always, always, always online. And it's almost like that is an addiction of itself. And I think that
Yeah.
can really lead to some other
Abs-
problems as well
Absolutely,
if it's
because you're seeing
overused.
almost, everyone's best parts of everyone's life, right? And then you're comparing it to your real life. But
No one
yes,
looks that good.
no, exactly.
It's their best
But
picture
you know what?
ever, you know?
It's so important. And really, this, like I said, if the Surgeon General is coming out and saying, hey, you know what? You need to look at screen time. We have at the Partnership for a Drug Free New Jersey, we have a campaign that's being released this year that says the same thing. You know what? Be aware of that screen time. And you know what? You be the face, you have those conversations with your children, because ultimately communication, whether it's with your child or with your doctor, is really the key
Absolutely.
here.
We have to be aware as parents. I mean, it seems so much harder today. There's just so many more things to think about, but it is where we are. And we have tried as parents. I mean, my kids are older now, but we still, when we have dinner together, no screens, no TV, no
Yeah.
phone. My son will try to sneak it under the table. I'm like, you're not, you're not saving anyone's life. You're not an emergency room doctor. You
Yes.
don't need your phone. It'll be there. And we
Yes.
actually have conversations and talk. And
Yes.
someone said to me, when you talk to your kids or when they talk to you, remember what color their eyes are. Be looking in their eyes. So often we're making dinner or we're looking or we're not really quite paying attention. But I thought that was a great tip. Remember what color their eyes are and look at
That's
them and
really
really
is that.
hear what they're saying, because that can make the difference right there,
Yeah.
where they just feel like they're listened to and not judged, which is so important.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very important. And you know what? The same thing for parents, right? Just what you said. I know, we're always looking at our phones too as adults. It's not just kids.
Yeah,
We're all
I
looking
know.
at
We're
kids
all
looking at
guilty.
their
We're all
phones.
guilty.
I
Yep.
recently had my eyes dilated from an eye doctor appointment, and I came out and I'm holding the phone trying to read it. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I can't see. And I'm still,
And you still
so we
wanted to
all.
look at it. I know, we
Exactly.
all do
So,
it.
as you said, like the center of our universe, kind of our center of our communication post pandemic, is such a different way. We really need to find the new healthy ways for all of us to communicate,
Absolutely. One thing
including
that
in
we try to
families.
do is go on family walks. We work out together too. We have a gym in our home and we work out,
Okay.
all my two kids, my husband and myself. But we also just, take a family walk. Anyone can do that. Ride bicycles. Just something to get out and be healthy and just, be together as a family. It's
Yeah.
just, and you set the tone for the kids. It's, get outdoors, do something active and be together. And that, to me, I feel like if we stress that a little bit more, that can really go a long way to
Yeah.
bonding ourselves with our kids. I mean, everybody wants that.
Absolutely.
I'm not, we just get busy. It just, life gets in the way. And it's
Absolutely. But
unfortunate
but
that it
what
gets that way.
But what you said is so it's age appropriate for your 4-year-old and your 3-year-old. You know what? Let's take a walk instead of sitting in front of the TV. Let's have an apple instead of having some chips. These are the healthy decisions that then when it comes time to what are we putting in our body? What are we doing to our body? When we have those conversations as kids get older, as they get into fifth grade, and by fifth grade, we should be having the conversation about, appropriate use of alcohol and tobacco and marijuana. These are conversations that we need to
Vaping,
have by the
another
time
one,
children's are
vaping.
10, yeah,
Mm,
and vaping 100%, and
ugh.
vaping, and what the family expectation and what the family rule is, as well as what impact it has on your body. And if you've been having those conversations, those age appropriate conversations since a young age, it'll be easier to have, and your children will be more, in line, in step with what your hopes and expectations are. And at the partnership, we begin our programming at the 3rd grade level, right? We provide and that it's exactly what I just spoke about: age appropriate, healthy decisions, understanding that what you put into your body, can have a negative, impact if you're not taking care of it. So that,
I love that. Tell us about some of your programs and what you do, because
sure.
it's vast. You have a lot.
Yes. So in the schools, we have programs from 3rd grade all the way up until high school. And we have, like I
And
said, in
someone
3rd
comes
grade,
in and speaks, or the
they're
teachers teach
pretty
it?
supplemental programs for
Uh-huh.
schools. So sometimes take home, projects and things. So in the 3rd grade, for example, through the support of PSE&G, we were able to provide activity books for 3rd grade students. And again, they say, talk about healthy life. So they're about
Mhm.
making decisions for a healthy life. We have initiatives in 4th grade. In 5th grade, we really target parents and say, hey, here's a list of some of the most significant drug trends happening right now in New Jersey. And these are the conversations. And here's some tips on having those conversations. And we work with Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey on that, to really get that information out to parents, to be able to say, you know what, this is a way to if you haven't had a conversation, have it now. And here's a guide to have that conversation.
I like
And
that, because sometimes it can be hard. It can be hard for a
it
parent. How
is
do I even
hard.
approach this? What do I say? So that's good
Absolutely.
that you give
Absolutely.
tips on that.
Yes. And again, anytime you have a minute to have that conversation on the way to school, on the way home from school, on the way to practice,
Oh, yeah, when
we,
they're strapped into the car.
yes, exactly. And they can't
They
go
can't
anywhere.
run away. I like that. Yes.
And then we look at middle school, where we ask middle school students to create scripts for television spots themselves that we record with them, because we want that peer-to-peer messaging to start. And that goes into high school as well, where we have a music competition, and we have a concert at the end that features all of the students from across the state who have music and messages, peer-to-peer messages about, staying away from drugs and understanding the risks of drugs and alcohol. We have programs in the community. We do an online learning series. We've been working with the New Jersey Office of the Attorney General and the national organization, the Opiate Education Foundation of America. So every month we have a webinar, and we talk about one of the issues or aspects of this opioid crisis. So, we're out there with webinars. We do a lot of parent education. We go out to, we're starting to go back out now post
Yes,
pandemic,
thank God. Yes,
to
yes.
PTAs
Uh-huh.
meetings and lunch and learns for businesses, and talking to parents, similar to the way that you and I had this discussion today about, hey, you know what, here's what's going on. Here's what you need to know. Here are the signs and symptoms. Here's ways to protect and safeguard your home and your children. And so we talk to them. We also have a pre-recorded version of that. So someone, if they can't come out, which we understand, obviously, they can watch it in their home. So we have that parent education. And then we also work in the workplace, providing messaging. And right now we're also doing a program where we're talking to youth athletes in high schools across the state. And we're talking to them about what we talked about earlier about, you know what, you may have a sports injury and you may be getting an opioid, and you need to know what that means and what impact that can have on you. You need to know about alternatives. You need to know that if you need help, you can ask for help, whether you've become, dependent on that, or whether you're stressed out because you haven't been playing because of the pandemic, and now
Mhm.
you come back, and now you're worried because your rankings aren't the same. And, there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure on our youth athletes, our
A
high school athletes.
lot. Yes, and and
So
sadly,
much.
you've seen that story. I've seen it at least on
Yeah,
television. The star athlete of the team gets hurt,
exactly.
and next thing you know, they're drug addicted, and
Yes,
then the parent gets that call, and it's like,
exactly.
What? My kid who was a
Yes,
A student and a top athlete? How did this happen to my child? You don't think it's
yes.
gonna happen to your own kid. And believe me,
100%.
I've been doing this long enough to think, it can happen to anyone. I
It
have interviewed
absolutely
so
can.
many people and I've seen it, and that's why I really wanted to do this and get this message out there. We just have to stay on top of it as parents. The life we save may be our own child's. And that's why it is so, so vital for us to learn and educate. And you offer so much through the Partnership for Drug-Free New Jersey. So where can we go to get more, to get on newsletters, to sign up for your
Absolutely.
webinars, so forth?
Yeah, just visit our website, drugfreenj.org. And when you land on there, there's links to everything that I talked about today. You can sign up to get updates on our youth-based programs. You can sign up for updates on or sign up for a webinar to get updates on our webinars. So absolutely, for parent education, just visit drugfreenj.org. And like you said, it's important for all of us to realize that addiction doesn't discriminate. We're all equally vulnerable to it. And
Absolutely. Kids and
it's a
adults.
message for everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so important. Just thank you very, very much for sharing this information with us. I hope it's touched at least one person out there. If it changes what they do and maybe learned a little bit more, then we've done our job today. So thank you so much, Angela Conover. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Robin, and thanks for helping to save lives across our state.
Oh, it is my true pleasure. Angela Conover, Director of Opioid Prevention for the Partnership for Drug-Free New Jersey. And thank you for being with me today for Living Well with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will keep you posted on my most recent episode. Until I see you next time, keep living well.